Welcome to Ducks Dash, the University of Oregon show on Dash Sports. I'm Izzy LaRue. Here with me is Michael Strite. Let's get into everything Ducks football. So, Michael, Oregon, we finally had our first game of the season, and Oregon, they did not disappoint. So, tell me, what did the Ducks show you in their first game of the season?
Yeah, Izzy, they just didn't disappoint, really. I think Oregon showed the country that they are still the best team in the Pac-12. And I think they showed that they are deserving of that top 15 ranking right now. I think they moved up from number 12 to number 11 this week in the AP poll. Obviously, how far they move, just depends on other teams winning and losing, but they're without a doubt still up there as one of the best teams in the country. They are the favorite to win the Pac-12. They were before the season started, and they should be after all the results that we saw this week. What really impressed me most of all, Izzy, in this 35-14 victory was it really looked like they reloaded because this was a year where they have to reload. Brand new offensive line, a lot of new faces on defense, quarterback making his first start, right? There's all these question marks, but all across the board, in every place that you could want, it looks like they have reloaded with some talent, and it looks promising.
Yeah, I just want to say, Matt, yeah, thanks for saying the Ducks got a nice win. Yeah, it really was a nice win. And yeah, we hope that the Pac-12 there will be no more cancellations because that's going to hurt the Pac-12 in the long run. The more
Yeah.
canceled games, especially if one of Oregon's games are canceled, or Arizona State or USC or Utah's game get canceled again, it's not going to be good for Oregon's chances to make it to the college football playoffs. But yeah, this was a really interesting game. I did not expect the game to go as it did at all because if you're Stanford, they set the tempo in the first half of the game with the run because you saw right before the game started, their QB and receiver they were ruled out due to COVID concerns, and so you have this backup quarterback for Stanford making his college start too. Not only Shuck wasn't the only one making his first college start, and they just went with the ball. And Austin Jones, he's the real deal. Like
Yeah.
he tore up Oregon's defense, and now even though Oregon's linebackers aren't experienced as they were in previous years, they these still are studs. And this guy, he ran all over the defense. And you look at our defensive tackles too, where we were talking about it. These guys, they're supposed to be one of the strong points of the team. And Stanford's offensive line, they got all over them that game. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do against other Pac-12's run game.
Yeah, 35-14. It's a dominant Oregon win. And they obviously beat the spread, which was 10, and then sort of moves to about 12 point favorites with the news about the COVID stuff for Stanford. So they beat the spread, but it really didn't feel, like that big of a blowout. This game was a lot closer than the score says. You have all the missed field goals from my man, Mr. Printer Inc., Jet Toner. I mean, I feel so bad for him because I love his name. He's a 4-year kicker too. I mean, like he's a senior. This is his senior year, and he just goes 0 for 4. I mean, literally when they were down by 14, they were like, "Well, David Shaw is just attempting a field goal here to up his kicker's confidence, right?" They're like, "It's just trying to boost his kicker's confidence," and he misses like a 30-something yarder, and you could literally. I know Izzy, you weren't listening to the broadcast, but Chris Fowler goes, "Oh my, oh wow, are you kidding me?" Like on the broadcast to see this, and he was just so devastated. So you add those points in there, and I know Camden Lewis also missed a field goal of his own, but you throw that in there, and you throw in the fact that this would have been an even closer game if Stanford had those 3 players that were scratched right before the game started, and the fact that Oregon did get sort of a late touchdown to make it 35-14. There was a point in this game where even when Oregon was in control, it was 28-14, and Stanford was moving the ball down the field well. And there was a point where I was sitting there, I think it was early in the fourth quarter, and I said, okay, Oregon's up by 14 here, but if Stanford gets this ball in the end zone, then you've got a one possession game, and you've got a real close game, and the
Yeah, it
momentum
was
kind
kind
of
of
swung
reminding me
there.
about the USC ASU game. I was like, oh, we might have another one of those type of games.
Yeah, yeah. exactly that. And then you get another missed field goal, and you're like, okay, well, Oregon's gonna, they're just a little bit
Yeah.
better, a little bit better today.
Yeah, Stanford's kicker definitely killed all of their momentum and all those four drives because you had these long drives where the run game was established and you got a couple good passes here and there. And like, okay, well, we didn't get a chance to convert for the first down. Let's try to get some points on the board. And the kicker, he could, I don't know what was up with him. He just couldn't make a field goal. And you mentioned it too, Ken Lewis. He did. Not a single kicker made a field goal that game. They made all their PATs attempts, but field goals 0 for 5. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Have you, Michael?
Yeah, I know somebody that texted me and was like, "What is the record for most missed field goals in a game?" And I had to do some deep digging, but I couldn't find anything because the Pac-12 record book has only positive records. They're like, "Oh, most field goals, right?" I couldn't find something for like what the most disastrous field goal performance there was. There was a game that went to like triple overtime that had both kickers for both teams combined to go 8 for 16 on field goals because they would keep getting stopped in overtime and then miss a field goal, and then the other team would get stopped and miss their field goal. So there was a really weird game where both teams combined to miss 8 field goals. I found that. I found a game from 1986 where the kicker for Idaho, which isn't even an FBS team, they're in the FCS, went 0 for 8 on field goals in one game, but I couldn't find proof of that. I just saw that somewhere and couldn't find the box score. But that was crazy. That was a weird situation. It was like, oh wow, this poor Stanford kicker, and then you get Camden Lewis shanking one, and you're just like, okay, well, yeah, our kicker still isn't great either.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the defense a little bit more too. Our DBs, Oregon's DBs, they did really good, especially Mikhail Wright. Stanford's QBs, they were going at him most of the game, and I know they got like a pass here or two there on him, but especially on one of the drives in the end zone where they were there for like, I think like maybe 4 plays, something like that. They were in the red zone for a while, and they went at him every single play, and every single time he rose to the occasion. He got the blocks. He even made the receiver do an offensive PI on him. So that's completely stopped their drive right there. And he stepped up to the plate. He did really good. He had 5 tackles, which was a team high. Because also, who was it? Was it Noah Sewell who had 5 tackles too?
Yeah, Noah Sewell. I mean, we talked about like, oh, there's all these great freshmen, which ones are going to play. And like I said, I was not expecting to see freshmen, true freshmen come out and make an impact in the first game of the season. And Noah Sewell shot out of a cannon. I mean, he was bulldozing offensive linemen, making these big tackles. And you could see, I mean, the broadcasters, Herb Street and Fowler, by the way, great game, great job by them. It was a joy to watch them. They're like, oh, wow, Penei Sewell just graduated, not graduated, but just left. He's going to go be in the NFL. Here's his brother, who is already in his first game, a 260-pound linebacker that is just bulldozing people and looking not like a freshman at all. And I mean, that performances like that, combined with the really talented performances we saw from all the defensive backs across the board, and the fact that that defensive line still could be among the best in the country. This is why there's so much optimism to go around because it really looks like they've reloaded. I mean, the parts that have left over are still great, and the gaps that were left behind are filled with Noah Sewells. And you're just sitting there like, oh man, this is all across the board. On the defensive side of the ball, all across the board, I would give, good grades.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of worries me because we talked about the defensive line and they got no sacks. They didn't really even pressure the quarterback that much either because Stanford they had a lot of deep balls thrown, but luckily the Oregon DBs they stepped up to the plate and they did what they had to do. So I want to see these guys who are supposed to be one of the best parts of the team actually step up and do
Yeah.
what they're meant to do. I know they'll do it, but it's just it's weird not seeing them perform in the first game of the season.
Yeah, even in the late game where Stanford has to pass the ball and you can rush, not to see some of those signature deflating sacks that you would want from a defensive line that is so hyped up. But I definitely did see one thing that is going to be, I think, by and large, I think most of the games Oregon plays this season, they're going to have a better second half than first half. And this is something we've seen as a very important hallmark of Mario Cristobal football is that if they take the lead, they don't really blow leads. They grind out the win in the way that they need to, right? And I'm not talking about like a close game where they're up by 7, right? If they get in charge of a game, they can finish those games. And you have countless examples of that. And in their most noteworthy losses, they just sort of get dominated in the first half and then make an effort to catch up but fall short in the second half. And I think what we're going to see more and more of from the season is an Oregon team that you got to beat them in the first half. And if you can't beat them in the first half, they grind out that second half and they just get better as the game goes on. And a lot of that has to do with the depth on the defensive side of the ball. That defensive line isn't just 4 talented guys. It's pretty much 8 talented guys. And they are cycling through these guys and they are all fresh. They're all feeling good. And they're never in a moment where they're really like, beat down or tired or wore down. They're coming at you all game. And I think the depth of Oregon just continues to add to what Mario Cristobal likes on his football team is that they get that lead and then they just don't let you come back.
Switch from the defense to the offense to talk about the new offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead's RPO offense. Michael, how do you think that offense looked?
Oh, Izzy, I tweeted after the first Oregon touchdown. It came near the end of the first quarter, I believe. And I tweeted, I said, it took exactly 1 quarter for Oregon fans to say, this is already better than Marcus Arroyo. And no disrespect to Marcus Arroyo because he had some great moments, some great plays. You can't take away the fact that he commanded a Rose Bowl champion, Pac 12 champion offense. But in 1 quarter of watching this Joe Moorhead offense, I think I was sold. I said, this is it. We have taken a step forward. And I think Oregon fans all sitting at home said, whoa, we're moving forward. Like, this is an upgrade. It's no longer like is Joe Moorhead's style going to work? I'm sold. And I think what was most exciting about this offense was that it was dynamic. It felt like there was a lot of different things Joe Moorhead could ask the offense to do. It felt like there was a lot of different directions the offense could go. And it was just so refreshing to see Oregon score a touchdown on a traditional option play, right? Where it's Tyler Shuck running the ball to the left side, getting the defender to collapse on him, and pitching it out. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that exists in college football, but has not been a part of Oregon's offense for a while, right? And to see that not just be like a trick play, but a fundamental part of the Joe Moorhead offense, and to watch it work along with all the other RPOs that you saw there in that game, it was so refreshing.
Yeah, and the one key part about this offense, it doesn't work without an athletic quarterback. And I thought that athletic quarterback was going to be Anthony Brown,
Yeah.
but they went ahead and went with Tyler Shuck, like most Duck fans thought. And he's way more athletic than I ever thought he was. Like, he
Yeah.
had 89 rushing touchdowns with the rushing TD. Like, you saw, he was not afraid to tuck the ball and run in. But the only problem that I saw was Shuck, because he saw the deep ball. The deep ball was amazing. He has a nice arm. It's
Yeah.
just going through his progressions. I don't know, because you saw he threw that. He had that one bad interception, and then he almost had another one in the fourth quarter to
Yeah.
start a drive. But it seems like he doesn't go through his progressions. Like, he has a preconceived note. Okay, this is the number one route. I'm gonna just look at him if he's not, and just sling it. But what he has to do, all the progressions. If your first route is not there, look at your second, and then not the second, look at the third. That's why it's called progressions. And so, Chris, he talked about it, and they're definitely going to be working on that throughout the season. We should see Shuck progressing, but I just wanted to see the short ball game work better. And then to go with talking about more about the offense, Verdell, I really didn't like the offense at first because you just had Verdell and Die and Habibi Likio just going in the A gap, just A gap, A gap, A gap, and they were just chipping away like getting like these 2-3 yard gains. And I was like, that's not really Oregon's running team like how they were previous years with Verdell. They usually like to stretch and go outside. And you saw they did a little bit that game, but they mostly went through the A and B gap. They just wanted to hit the Stanford defensive line right in the mouth, and it worked. They kept chipping, grinding at it, and they finally got to a point where Dye had a big run. Verdell had a big run. Habibi Likio got a touchdown at the end of the game. So this offense, it's not an offense that's gonna be making big spectacular plays in the first half, like you mentioned. It's the type of offense that's just gonna chip away at the defense, make them tired, and then you'll get those big explosive plays. Then you'll get those big touchdown plays that Oregon fans love to see. But you just have to be patient and watch the offense progress.
Going back to Tyler Shuck, really impressed and earned his starting spot for now, right? Earned his starting spot in that game, earned his chance to be out there. It's going to be weird because we're always going to have our eye on Anthony Brown. You don't spend your senior year transferring somewhere to be a backup. I fully think that Joe Moorhead and Mario Cristobal are going to be quick to give him a chance. If Tyler Shuck opens that door, he's going to get his chance. At the very least, in, like we said, potentially just a creative situation where he comes out for a few plays at a time, gets put in a wide receiver position maybe. Some fun stuff you can do there. Tyler Shuck, like you said, what separates an average quarterback from your NFL prospects, your Justin Herberts, is the way that they progress through a play. Justin Herbert will get back there. He'll say, my number one, my number two. If he does take off, he'll keep his eyes up and he'll say, okay, is there a chance I can still throw the ball before I run, right? What you see a lot of these young, inexperienced quarterbacks do is they see their number one, and if their number one isn't wide open, then they either decide to make a throw to somebody that is covered, that is not a good idea, or they immediately put their head down and they're trying to run, right? And it works. It can get you those 10, 12-yard gains. Tyler Shuck is elusive. He's got great movement. He had some really amazing, impressive runs. I mean, the guy had 89 rushing yards. That's awesome for a quarterback. One of the best moments of the game was Tyler Shuck in the end zone with his hands up, scoring a rushing touchdown. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But that's a lot easier to do when you're in the lead. When you are behind and you can't just, take off and you know that there's a ferocious pass rush coming, you got to be able to make those big passes. You got to be able to hit those 15-yard passes to your third progression maybe and not panic and just take off, because sometimes, that doesn't work out and you get sacked when somebody was open. And that is sort of that awareness of the game that Tyler Shuck definitely needs to improve on. You definitely don't want to see the turnovers. I got to admit, Oregon got really lucky. You don't often commit 2 turnovers and win by this much.
Yeah.
One of my keys to the game was winning the turnover battle, and I was dead wrong on that because Oregon had 2 turnovers and it didn't really affect them, right? But those 2 turnovers were very concerning. They both came in the first half, and it was just really concerning to see Oregon playing sloppy, and they figured it out. But you can't have Oregon, when the games get a little bit closer, those Tyler Shuck interceptions, those Cyrus Habibi Likio fumbles are the difference between a win and a loss.
Yeah, and that was very uncharacteristic for BB Lakio to make that fumble. You saw that play; he slipped, and it was just, it was honestly, it's a funny play. He needed the ball out of his own hands, coughed it up right to the Stanford defender. Luckily, if Michael Pittman wasn't there, who knows? He maybe would have ran it for a touchdown.
Yeah,
he was right on him right after he got the fumble. But yeah, you don't really see Habibi Likio making those type of fumbles. And then Shuck, we should see him making better throws. But if he's not making those throws, because Stanford, they should have easily had 2 picks, maybe even 3. And they play against these better Pac-12 defenses with better DBs, they're not going to get those balls back. Once you throw that back pass, it's over. The drive's over. They're going to get it. They might even have a pick 6. So he has to make those progressions. He has to get better at reading a defense.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Stanford at all, but I'm still concerned about Tyler Shuck in Oregon and all those new players facing a really good defense. if a defense comes out and executes their game plan and has tape to watch and knows what they want, what they want to put out there and what they're going to do. Smart decisions about that offensive line holding up when there's a little bit more pressure. I was definitely impressed with the offensive line, but if it gets tougher, are they going to continue to, be firm and be a positive to this offense? And so it's going to be interesting to see Oregon facing off against better and better defense.
Okay, looks like we lost Michael, but yeah. So basically, I just want to touch up on the offense a little bit more. TJ Bass, he was one of those linemen that did really good. We really didn't know how this Oregon line was going to do because of those four or those five linemen who were starters all those years, and you have completely new offensive line. They did their job really well. They blocked for Verdell, Dye, and Habibi Likio very well. They got their times to shine in the run game, and also they gave Shuck enough time in the pass game to throw those deep balls like he was doing. So this offensive line, they've proven that they are ready. But I want to see how they do against some of these better teams. I know next week they're Oregon's traveling to Pullman, and Pullman, they're kind of in a rebuild mode right now. So it who knows how that's going to be looking like for Pullman. Oregon, they should do well in that game. But yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this Joe Moorhead RPO offense. Really, it showed that this offense it works for a reason. He gets these head coach jobs, these offensive coordinator jobs for a reason because his offense it works. It works. It made Tyler Shook look way better than he did last year when he got those looks whenever Herbert went out for a little while with some with the concussion or not concussion, but like if he got hit in the head and had to get checked out real quick in the tent, Chuck came in and he showed what he could have done with some good passes, but now you really saw his athleticism and you saw that he can run the ball. He was 11 yards away from having 100 rushing yards, and the only person who had more rushing yards than him was his running back, who only had about 16 more rushing yards than him on way more carries. So that's fun to see. This offense is really fun to see. You get to see the quarterback. It's a really quarterback focused offense, and I just want to see how Anthony Brown would do in this offense. But we'll see how these games go. Maybe next week, since they're going to Pullman playing against the Cougars, we might see Anthony Brown because, as you guys know, it really no one knew who the starting quarterback was until the game started, and I was there at the game, and 2 hours before the game, you already knew who the quarterback was going to be because at Oregon's their big new screen that they just had this graphic of Shuck as the quarterback. So like, okay, well that's starting quarterback then, and he did really well that game. He made some nice passes, but this Oregon run game, it truly has shown that this is going to be the focal point of the offense for the rest of the year. And with 500, they're like 4 yards away from a total of 500 offensive yards and of 500 total yards with the passing, with the run game almost being at 300, I think. So we should see a very good Oregon offense throughout the rest of the season. And now we will take it to the preview in Pullman next week. Oregon and Washington State, they're both 1-0. Washington State, they beat Oregon State. I don't think anyone I think that's a shock to anyone because it being Oregon State, we all know they're not one of the best teams in the Pac-12, not even in the middle of the pack. And now Oregon's facing this Washington State team who lost their coach Mike Leach. He went to the SEC. He took KJ Costello with him to Mississippi State, and now they have new head coach, new QB because their quarterback left. And it's just I don't know. I don't know what Washington State can do against this Oregon team because like we've been saying, me and Michael have been saying, Oregon, they look like they reloaded. Even though it was against a Stanford team, they still put up 5 touchdowns, and that's necessary for this Oregon team to make the college football playoffs. They have to be making these games not close at all. You want to see these 2-3 score leads at the end of games to show the committee that Oregon really dominated the Pac-12 and that they should be one of the top teams in the country. And even though Oregon's ranked 11, I think they're a top 10 team in the country. We saw everyone saw it last night against Stanford. They'll definitely, after the Washington State game, they'll definitely be ranked in the top 10 team in the country just because of how their rankings are. Because it's still iffy with the Pac-12 just barely starting their play, and then about 2 games were canceled, so 4 Pac-12 teams did not play. So that also factors into the other teams' rankings. But yeah, so next week it should be a really fun game. I expect more of the same. Oregon, they have to start off very fast. So if Oregon does not start off fast in this game, you're going to see kind of like what it was against Stanford, where it was 0-0 until the last 3 minutes of the first quarter, and then you have team scoring. And Stanford, they really control the game with the run game. And I'm interested in seeing if Washington State can do that. If Washington State has a running back like Austin Jones, because if they don't, Oregon's defense should have a field day because their pass defense, everyone saw it. Their pass defense is legit. It's legit. Their cornerbacks are ready to play. Safeties, they're ready to play too. Diamador Lanier, Mikhail Wright, Ron McKinley. Even though Ron McKinley got ejected, he'll be back for the next game, whether it's the first or second half. He'll still be playing in that Washington State game. So the only question will be is if Washington's team can have a run game, because if they do not have a run game, it's going to be an easy one for the Ducks because Washington State's defense, it's not one of those top Pac-12 defenses like Michael have been referring to. Honestly, Oregon won't really see a top Pac-12 defense till even later on in the season because after they play Washington State, they're going to play UCLA at home. And UCLA, they looked atrocious in their game on Saturday. I did not expect them to be that bad, but we'll see what Oregon does in the next 2 weeks. Like I said, I've been predicting Oregon going 6-0 in the regular season and then winning the Pac-12 championship. But yeah, it should be really interesting to see how Oregon does against Washington State. I know Duck fans, you guys are very excited to finally seeing the Ducks play. I know the whole entire Pac-12, they're excited in seeing just Pac-12 being played again. I know Pac-12, they're the last Power 5 conference to start. But here it is. Here's college football. It's officially back, even though it's been back for a couple teams for a month or so. But yeah, so make sure to check out our Dashers columns on sportspac12.com, where you can find columns for most Dash Sports shows. And thank you for joining us today. And make sure to follow us at Dash Sports TV on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. And we also have a website too. So go on and head out and check that out too. It's dashsports.tv. And make sure to catch our weekly episodes Sundays at 1 p.m. We'll do this every Sunday right after game day. And also check out our crossover shows too every Friday, where either we'll be hosting if it's an away game or we'll be on another Dashers platform if it's Oregon away game.